Hi, Robert. It's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, guys. Welcome back. All right. So here's part two. Part one, we went over how to install the IDE, how to upload our sketches, how to do all that good stuff. One of the things that we skipped by mistake was showing you how to double check, make sure your port and your boards are all communicating. In the IDE, Andy, help me out which tab it is to get your board info.
Yeah, it's under the tools menu. There is and actually I could even show that. So on the IDE, under the tools menu, you'll have two things that are important: is the board setting. Make sure you're set for genuine Uno or Mega 2560 if that's the one you're using, and under the port setting, if you have one plugged up here, under the port setting, it will show ports that are by default recognized.
All right, and at that point, to double check that, there's another button underneath those two. It says Get Board Info. If you click on Get Board Info and you have everything established correctly, it'll pop up with a whole bunch of numbers and everything else. When we move into actually installing JMRI and setting up the config for that, you're going to want to make sure to have that information readily available. So that being said, let's get to it. So in a basic Google search, just type in JMRI. Here's what it'll pop up, jmri.org. Click that link. It'll take you to this page, the front page. Here you can take the time to read through all of it if you want to, production notes, test releases, all the good jazz that goes along with it. For the sake of this, we're going to go just straight to this download button here under Kick the Tires. We're just going to download and install it. So click download. That'll bring you to this page here. At this point, you have three options. You can download the file for Mac OS or OS X. You can download it for Windows, or you can download it for Linux. If you're using a Raspberry Pi, you want to download the Linux version. You want to do that while you're in the Raspberry Pi. For us, since we're on Windows machines, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Windows link, and it's going to install it and download it and show it up right here. Once it's done, as mine is here, we can go click open, go through the whole Marianne and just get it installed. Next, install for everyone, install for just me. If you have multiple users on your computer and you don't want anybody else to mess with it, click on the install for just me. Otherwise, everyone is fine. Typical install, unless you know a lot more about JMRI, typical is the way to go. It'll do everything for you. Put it in the proper file system you want. Install it under JMRI. Uh-oh, have a problem. I don't have Java on my machine. Hey, that's actually good to know. So let's go through that. Let's type in Java. Get the Java update. Bear with me here. I'm actually using my work computer, so because my power is currently out. Install. Andy, you want to jump in right here for a minute while I get this taken care of?
Sure, and I've got the setup done for Java on a Linux box for those of us that run JMRI on a Raspberry Pi, but you can run it on any computer, period. So if you happen to have a extra computer, an old computer, it doesn't have to be the most frequent thing or the most recent computer. I mean, a computer from a decade ago would adequately do this. I would generally recommend a dedicated computer for JMRI, because with all the updates from Windows, Java that tend to break things, it's a lot easier to have something dedicated set for this. Raspberry Pi is, $50 all in to have a dedicated JMRI system, but anything will do the job. Once you've got Java and JMRI installed, Also, unless you have a specific requirement for one of the features that is in beta, I'd recommend just running the stable release of JMRI. Most of us have had the best luck with that. Maybe 6 or 8 months ago, there was a feature for plus that we had to use the beta version for, but that comes with some pain, so stable tends to be better. Mine is on a dedicated box, but I just remote into when I do need to do some programming or something. This stays in my workshop. That machine is adjacent to a programming track there. It gives me an instance of JMRI that, because for the most part, we're going to interface with this via just a phone running WiThrottle, or you could run a JMRI instance locally and connect to this for the purpose of panels or, you know, that kind of stuff. So once you've got, just install JMRI, next, default setup and configuration. Once you've come in, the first time you open JMRI, it's going to ask you about your interface to your layout, your DCC system. And here, under connections, this box will pop up initially. When you first install it, this box will pop up anyway. If you have a DCC++ system like this, you just use the ++ system from all the available options of DCC. There's a whole, you know, a lot of systems supported by JMRI, including more than just this one as a home built system. For the purpose that Chris and Robert were doing this show with, and what Robert's going to talk about tonight, we're all talking about, even though it's USB connection, we're talking about a serial connection. It's the S part of the USB. It's still just a serial port connection to it. You can connect to it with a network. For anybody who's interested in that, anyone, Robert or me or Chris, every one of us are interested in that. Talk to us in one of the regular chats. We'll talk about some of those capabilities. But just a serial port. Choose the same port that you used in Arduino if you're in the Arduino IDE. If it is that you're using the same computer to do programming versus the same computer to run JMRI. Excuse me. And then once you've assigned that port, got that configured, in any of your JMRI windows, you'll have a green light when your device is connected.
All right, so I think we're finally back to where we can continue with this. Let's hope and pray. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and click next. JMRI. Hey, there, it's working. So it's going to take a few minutes to extract it all into its proper subfolders and all this other good stuff. And as you can see, there's a lot to it. It really shouldn't take too long. Unless you have an older system like I do, in which case.
But it takes a little bit of time anyway to put all that data together. It's installing a whole, people think of JMRI as a program. It's really more a collection. It started out as 3 guys were writing 3 different pieces of software for 3 different parts of controlling their model railroads, and under different names. And they kind of got together, heard about each other, and started collaborating, and it became a single system with all of these apps. So Decoder Pro is its own thing, and I recommend people run JMRI if nothing else, but use Decoder Pro. But you've got Panel Pro for dispatch and control and warrants and scripting and operations. There's a whole lot of components to JMRI. This thing's installed all that stuff. So all you have to do is just next, install it, and you've got the whole list of programs.
Yeah, we're better than 3/4 of the way through it now, so shouldn't take too long. All right, finally finished it. Click next. We'll finish and close it. Okay, so on my system, forgive all the craziness that's going on as far as icons goes. We're going to start up with Decoder Pro. So go ahead and open that. Might take a minute. It's Java. All right, so this is the first time we've opened it up. So we're just going to go through the prompts, tell it what language you want. It has a whole list of them. Find the one that suits you. From here, then it's going to ask you for your DCC connection. And there's a whole list. There's Atlas, CMRI, CTI, DCC++, which is the one we're going to use. Digitrax, ESU, Hornby, JMRI network. Now that's an internal system, so chances are you probably won't use that one too much. Lionel TMCC is on here for those of you in O scale. Raspberry Pi, Sprague, just to name a few, right? So we're going to go with DCC++, not CTI. Apparently my mouse doesn't like me today. Okay, so at this point, it's going to ask you for system connection. If you're going through USB, you want to click DCC++ serial port. You do also have the options of the simulator, which, again, that's pretty much going to be internal. You have Ethernet and you have server. Andy can probably chime in at this point and give a quick overview of the Ethernet and server sides of this if he chooses to, but for our section, we're going to go with serial. I don't have any ports on this, but this is the point where you're going to select which USB port you used to hook up your base station and your motor shield. That's the information we had from the IDE. Put that information in there, select that port. Then you're going to go connection prefix. This is important for you later if you're going to run things off of your Arduino and your motor shield combination. Once you have that done, click next, click finish. Yes, it gave me the error because I don't have anything hooked up. Andy, would you mind showing that out for us? What those actually look like?
Sure.
You have yours connected as well, right?
I do.
Okay.
So this is my JMRI.
So go to. That's all right. You can go into let's see. I think it's edit. It's either edit or set it preferences right there.
Yep.
All right. So see how Andy has this one set up. It says TTY ACMO as his serial port. That's because he's running this off a Pi instead of his regular machine. If he was running it off of a regular machine, it would say port 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number it is.
Yeah,
but that's the box.
Different. And each of these are different. Mac OS will give you a list of serial ports that looks different. Linux will, and Windows will. They just look different, but there'll only be a couple in there.
But that's similar to how your screen should look once you start going into the next bit of this. Let's see, screen shared again. So now, minimize that. Finish and connect. Just click finished, click OK. I'm going to click cancel because, you know, I don't have anything actually set up. From here, so now we have our DCC++ pretty much established. On Andy's, if you don't mind, sir. Forgive the Hole of Doom. All right, go ahead and close the preferences window. All right, so once we have everything set up, on Andy's screen, what we see, aside from the top 5 or 6 things, you know, the regular stuff, you see right below the main window stuff, you see new loco, identify, help. Then there's an on button. Okay, remember that for later because that's kind of important. I made this mistake myself. That actually turns the power on and off to your motor control shield. If this is off, your JMRI will not function. It won't read, it won't do anything. Here's their internal where you can decide whether you want to go with DCC or internal. We'll click it to DCC. The window, the little box just to the right of that, direct byte, direct bit. My experience is it doesn't really matter which one it's set to. It may later on you might find out that it works better in bit than byte. But as far as I know, it has no relevance. Okay, so because we have this programming mode box that has DCC and internal, we want to make one quick adjustment to our preferences. So Andy, if you don't mind. And then if you go to defaults on the left side here. Okay, now if we're looking at this, we see throttle, power control, command station, service programmer, ops mode program, and consists, right? Now, Andy's system has bubbles for everything except for consists. So what we need to do is move those two from the bottom off of internal up to DCC, which Andy has already done for us. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and save it and close it. Okay, that's what I was waiting for. So once this actually loads, you're going to need to restart JMRI. So let's do that. Don't worry about that control panel that just popped up for Andy. Oh, yeah, looks like he's got a new test release available and a new production release available. He should update.
Yeah, I do too. Add to the list.
All right, so check it out. So now our screen's a little bit different. We no longer have the ability to select internal or DCC++. It is all automatically set to DCC++. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you see where it says Service Ops Mode Program or DCC++ is online. Same with Operations, DCC++ is online. Program idler, the status is idle, and it shows your active profile. Andy, do you have a loco set up that you want to program right now that we can demonstrate with?
I could get one on the programming track if you'll give me just a minute.
Yeah, no worries. We'll hang out for a minute while Andy gets one set up. Well, I was going to say you just leave that up.
Oh, yeah, true.
Just go get the loco, Andy. It's fine. This is really a super. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question over here from James N. How much more would it cost to go to DCC? I guess from DC.
If you're going to convert over to DCC from DC, James, you can do this system for as little as 35 or 40 bucks with shipping if you go with clones. A lot of guys say that the best option is to go with name brand stuff. Personally, I haven't had an issue with the clones, but the name brand stuff's going to run you more in the 50s and 60s. Not that bad compared to, say, a Digitrax system.
Yeah.
Compared to a Digitrax system, which you're going to spend about 180 bucks. Oh, Andy, your text just came through.
How exciting!
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and click New Loco. Now we're going to read type from Decoder. Andy, go ahead and close that because I want to show the easy way to do it. There you go. So he's going to go ahead and read the couple of CVs that it's looking at to determine what type of decoder we actually have. Okay, so it's decided that it's either a Paragon 2 steam or a Paragon 3 steam or steam with depleting coal and whistle smoke. Yeah, Andy knows his loco is a Paragon 2.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and change the roster ID to, whatever you find relevant because it will not let you keep New Loco as a roster ID. You have the option to go ahead, Andy. You have the option to set that up as DCC DC conversion. Most of us don't. So if you want to, you can. I don't know if it's going to work out very well for you or not. Okay, at this point, we're going to click on the new one we just brought in, and we're going to open the programmer. So, Andy, go ahead and click on Basic. You can enter all this information in later if you want to.
No worries.
Okay, so we want to just make sure that everything's reading. We obviously know that the two read, but we want to just double check. We want to switch speed steps to 28 to 128 speed steps, just to make sure we have as much controllability as we can. Go ahead and click the right button. Boom, it's done. You see how it went from yellow to red to white? The yellow means there was a change. It's looking to make a change. Red means it's writing. And white means it's written. Let's see. Go ahead, Johnny.
All right, we got two questions here. First one's from Curtis. Will this work with all decoders?
Yes, Curtis, this will work with all decoders. There's a monster list of decoders that it will read, and as far as I know, all of the major brands are on there, and a few of the other ones as well.
Yeah, DCC being the standard it is and ratified by the NMRA, as long as it's NMRA compatible DCC, which is there's a few that have little nuances, but that's rare exceptions, and you're still at as close to 100% compatible as you could be.
David's asking,
oh yeah,
in the IP host / host name JMRI, what would the IP be of the router? That depends on how your router's set up.
Well, and that's also assuming you're doing network. If you're doing networking, as opposed to USB, so if you have it directly connected to the JMRI computer on USB, then you want to select the serial type of interface. If you do choose to do networking, you need a mega with things that Robert's not covering today on how to set up the network. But I don't care a bit to help. If you want to go that way and put the networking connectors on there, because that's what I'm doing as well, and I think Chris is too. If you want to do that, meet us in a regular chat. I'd gladly help you try to figure that out.
Yeah, and actually, I'd love to set in on that one myself, because the more I can learn about this, the better off we'll all be.
Well, and the only advantage to network is that you could put the DCC++ system very adjacent to the railroad, but your actual JMRI system could be some distance away. That's the only distinct benefit.
Right. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the programming here. A lot of people will choose to use the kickstart value, the acceleration rate, and the deceleration rate. I personally don't. But the way you like to run your program, your locomotives better than I do. So for Andy, you want to jump in on that one? Because I don't really use it.
Kickstart helps kind of get you over. Okay, so motors and gears and all these components kind of have a natural mechanical or physics delay due to friction and all that stuff. Kickstart will help get over some of that, especially the motors part, by kind of bursting a little power into the motor right away to kind of get it to start its movement. It'll help you get smoother takeoffs, but you've got to adjust it for the locomotive. My other Broadway locomotives, this one is not very tuned at all. My other Broadway locomotives do use a kickstart value kind of low. Acceleration and deceleration have to do with momentum. I also use a lot of momentum on my locomotives. This one's not very high. I normally use values up in the 50 to 70 range, which gives me a so running at a scale 40 miles an hour or so, if I pull it all the way to stop, no emergency and no applying brakes, just from 40 scale miles an hour pull to stop, it takes about 25 feet to stop at about 70 as the decel rate. So if you care about momentum, I would start with a low number and start turning it up until you find something that's comfortable for the way you like trains to run.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump over to the basic speed control. Have a look at this. We won't really do anything with it.
And I'm using the I'm using speed, right, but you can't.
Yeah, that's what I used to. Okay, so here's the thing with basic controls. You have a voltage start, a voltage mid, and a voltage high. Right? If that's the way you want to run your locos, then you need to slide those bars over to whatever you're comfortable with them being set at. You also need to click the bubble here that says use V start, V mid, V high. That's going to set CV29 to bit 4.
Yeah, you can
we
only
don't generally use those.
This one or this one. You've got to pick one of those two. If you turn this one on, it will disable this one. And if you turn this one on, it will go back and disable this one.
Right. So you can only run one of the two. You can't run both. Speeds table gives you a lot more control on how you can set your locos. You can click force straight.
Yeah, just forces a diagonal line. I like
forces everything the way it needs to be.
Curve, the constant ratio curves. The constant ratio curve works really good for freight locomotives, where you have a lot of control in the bottom part of your speed for very sensitive adjustments of 4 miles an hour versus 6 miles an hour. But then as you get up at higher speeds, you don't need that much flexibility if you're not running them up at that speed.
Right. And then match ends. Go ahead and click on match ends, Andy.
That'll let you pull.
That gives you a straight straight diagonal, set you then, and then you can adjust exactly where it's going to play out.
Yeah. So if you want to set your top speed, you can set your top speed in this value here. And wherever, if you don't want a locomotive to run faster than 60 miles an hour, you can set this to where 60 miles an hour feels, and then just have a smooth, straight table between them.
Right. Long curve is gonna curve you up the other direction, the opposite of the constant ratio curve. It's gonna give you a faster increase at the start and less change as it gets to the top end of the speed table. One of the tricks here is you can do shift left, shift right, where it shifts everything and it starts to match it all up, so you can get this nice little plateau on your speeds. Right does the same thing. If you want to take your first one up and then shift right, you can do that as well. Function maps I generally don't play with a lot. If Andy wants to chime in, he's more than welcome.
Now I mess with those. This one's not very well tuned, but a couple things. I really, really like the fact that we can manipulate these things so we can make them all the same, because function maps have always been kind of a pain. If you're on a Tsunami or a Digitrax, the functions may be set differently, and that can be kind of annoying. Here, you can make sure that all of those are set the way you like them. Now, if you use WiThrottle, a beautiful thing happens that I'm a real big fan of is, I'll just show you. It shows you, which I haven't pushed it for that locomotive, but it shows you, see where it says light. I know you can't see that much, but where it says light for that. If you set all of those function maps, they will say light, smoke, bell, horn, grade crossing, etc. You won't have to remember what function keys they are. But if you do use a throttle system, Digitrax or whatever, the function maps really become handy. So you can set, especially the first 8 that are so easily convenient on your throttle, you can set them to the same thing regardless of what decoder you're using.
All right, so now we go back to the screen share.
The matrix.
Yeah. So then we can look at our light tab here and see kind of how we want to set everything up. All of this stuff you guys can change to whatever you really want it to do. I haven't really taken a lot of time to play with it. I only have one loco that has sound and all the good bells and whistles and all the good stuff on it, so I haven't really had a chance to play with it yet. Analog controls, we went ahead and disabled those when we chose the power source conversion to NMRA digital only. So if you did that, this page is void. Don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
If you actually set that up to be able to convert to DC, so you can run your loco on both DC and DCC, then this is where you want to play with all of that stuff and get it right. Sound levels and sound, if you don't mind, Andy.
Absolutely. I mess with this a lot. I bring my master volume down like significantly.
Right. So this is where you can adjust all those different sounds, the chuffs, the rod knocks, you know, all the craziness that you can get out of a sound DCC decoder. This is where you can adjust it. Click on the regular sound tab, Andy. All right, so here we have brake set and release. We have brake squeal. Those are kind of on off at this page. The other page you can turn them, adjust them. CV right sound feedback. See, now on this one, I have it enabled, but I don't actually get any sound feedback when I write a CV. I don't know if it actually works or not.
I think that's TCS does that, I believe. I think that may be decoder specific, since none of my decoders do it either.
Okay. Good to know. Startup sound never plays. You know, I mean, all of this is just easy way for you to change everything. Once you get to a point where you're satisfied with your setup and the way everything's looking, then what we're going to go ahead and do is write changes on sheet.
And that'll do just this one page.
Right. That's only this page.
Yeah.
Now, if you haven't had any issues with your decoder and everything writes really easily, then you can go ahead and write changes on all sheets, and it won't cause an issue. It'll just write everything that you've changed so far.
One of the nuances, sometimes since you're writing all kinds of data, it would be a little bit annoying to say, and then sometimes you will get it'll fail on one. I find this tab really handy because this is the raw CV values. This is what you would have to use if you were using your Digitrax or NCE throttle. You would have to know what all of these are to set. This is why it's so spectacular. But if you're having a problem getting some of them to write, you can write changes on all sheets, and it will step through all of these CVs. And if there's one that doesn't write, you will see it colored orange that it hasn't wrote, and you can figure out why you're having a problem with it.
Yep.
Ron's trains and things. He said, we make a big jump somewhere from having an Arduino with DCC++ loaded to programming locomotives. Did I miss how we connect this thing to a programming or a main track?
I believe that we covered that on the first show, but so just to rewind that a little bit and answer that question, on your motor control shield, if you got one of the ones that was put in the description when the show first kind of started posting, there's screw terminals on it, and generally speaking, if I'm not mistaken, the A set is for the main, the B set is for your programming track. Give me half a second and I'll double check that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how that is.
Oh, let's see, power went out, so I got to find a flashlight real quick. Hey, there it is. Bingo. Yeah, so B is your programming, A is your main. With JMRI, unless you set in a toggle switch and did some other snazzy stuff like that, it will not let you program on the main. You will have to literally lift your loco off the programming track, put it onto your main to get everything to work. Ron, if that did completely answer your question, please let me know so that I can completely finish your question. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and keep moving here. And Andy's putting in all kinds of good information: road number, road name, manufacturer, his handy little name, his model, and he's setting the throttle speed limit percentage. So once he's He set his to 60. So once you actually load your throttle, it is going to top out at 60. It won't go any higher than that, no matter what your speed table says.
That's it. Yeah, so it's topping my speed table out. I'll have to go back and adjust that.
Okay, Ron, I'm not sure what M1 positive, M1, and M2 positive are. Probably the A and B. You're going to have to just play with it and kind of figure out which one's supposed to be which. I would assume that 1 is A and 2 is B. All right, Andy's writing some CVs.
It's not hard to see one of those failed.
Yep, so, right there.
No response.
What CV was that?
So if you go to CVs and scroll through these, you'll see the one that has it wrote right there. So
CV 86 did not write.
And we can just force write it again. No knowledge from locomotive. It doesn't like that one.
In other words, that one does not have. Peel that out, Eddie. Widen that frame out. Up at the top where it says state.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh come on. Yeah, so this 87 doesn't like my speed table writing, or 86. It ran back 94, so we'll have to go back and adjust those tables.
Yeah. So see, we can play with this and adjust it and get it to where it likes it to be, and then we can just kind of move from there. And once we get through all of this, then Andy, do you want to continue to figure this out, or do you want to? There you go. It wrote it and stored it.
Yeah. So now I just have to go back to the speed table and write the whole. See, it even changed that one. That one's now been wrote back. Yep. So now I can just. Occasionally, you'll have to mess with these things, and speed tables are. You know, Chris Hiley has a really good mechanism for writing speed tables so that they're all the same. So I'm going to go chase that one down again too, 41. But he has a really good way of using a speedometer to write these. It's a, you know, or to get your locomotives where you can call system together. But I still think that I don't care what you do, speed tables are just a whole lot of messing around with them. Well, I'm going to mess with that some more.
All right, so let's just go ahead and call this one programmed. Go ahead and click. Now, hold on, Andy. Go ahead and click File. Go ahead and save. This is going to write an XML file that saves the exact way this decoder is written. That way, if something happens and you need to change to a different instance of JMRI, then you can pull this XML file onto a flash drive, upload it to the new system, and it has everything ready to go without much hassle.
Yeah, I export things all the time, so I have a copy of it. So I'll export a copy of this, name it your locomotive or something. Especially if you're programming, you know, several of the same locomotive, you could then re-import this and start working from that.
All right, so now we have, yeah, go ahead and finish it. Cool. So now we have all of this written, right? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and Andy, go ahead and minimize the window. I know you're still playing with it and you want to get it squared away. All right, so we were working on ID 2199. So let's go ahead and click that. And let's go ahead and click throttle.
Yeah, I don't think this thing will run on the programming track, but I could be wrong.
No, at this point you need to take your locomotive off your programming track and put it onto your main.
Well, I've got this. I've got 1213 up on the main.
Okay, so 1213's up on the main. We'll switch over. Okay, so click throttle. Now, all we're gonna do is just make sure everything is working. So go ahead and fire it up the way you want to, Andy. You got it all power on already.
Yeah, it should be.
Maybe.
I was just playing with it too, so 1213 set. Yeah.
So he's controlling this from his phone right now, and if you watch that throttle window, you see the slider moving up and down, but his mouse is nowhere near it. He's apparently got some dirty track.
Oh yeah, it's no doubt about it.
All right, so he's controlling his locomotive with JMRI and the WiThrottle. All right, so since you saw it kind of pop up, and we didn't really talk about it much, we're going to go through the process of loading the WiThrottle so you can get your phones as throttle. So to do that, what we want to do is click on Settings. When he gets settled, no rush.
You're fine. All right.
All right. Nope, not settings. Go actions. There it is. And then we're going to go down to start WiThrottle server. Andy, yours was already open, so it shouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, it is. But it won't matter.
All right. So that's going to pop this whole thing up. When it actually starts to load, it's gonna actually take a minute, and it's gonna give you a regular address.
Yeah.
Which is for Andy is 10.0.4.13. Then it's gonna give you below that a port number, 10.0.4.13 with the port number of 12090. 12090 is the default port number. So if you went to your buddy's house in another state over and he was running JMRI also, unless he changed it, he's going to have the exact same port number you do. The only thing that's going to change is that IP address, and you'll have to get that on there. Now, the cool thing about it is that when you have the controller actually pulled open on your phone, which I am doing right now, engine driver, it's searching for that open connection. So if you've got it up and running, it should automatically pop up. I can't see what yours is saying, Andy.
Let's see.
There we go.
So it will auto discover at the bottom, and it will auto discover based on the name of your layout. So in JMRI, there's a setting for the layout name, and you could set, like mine's NW Clinch Valley District. It should auto find this stuff as well. The only times you may have to worry about manually setting it is if you have separated networks, like your wireless is separate from, or in my case, I have a dedicated wireless just for the railroad. I mean, this stuff's so cheap these days. You buy a wireless access point, you can be sure that your railroad's going to work the way you want with the dedicated.
Yep, which is what I did online.
Yeah, that's it.
So we'll go ahead. So at that point, you'll go ahead and click on that instance, and then it should show.
Oh yeah, then when you go to addresses, you'll see the couple locomotives, the one we're actually running, but you'll see your consist if you do any consisting in there, and you'll see that 2199 locomotive that we programmed a minute ago. I just don't have it on the main, or we can brought that one up, but you can bring one of these up and click set. That'll set. Well, I had one set, so. I can't do that backwards.
and the throttle system program app, whatever you want to call it, for iPhone looks different than the one for Droid. So, but it basically works the exact same way. It's just the way the mapping goes on the buttons. But once you have that WiThrottle server up and you select your loco, you can control all the features on it. You can control the throttle on it, all right there from your phone.
And then once you choose the locomotive, click set, it'll go green. Go to your throttle, and you'll see this one I programmed a lot more, so it's going to be really hard to get it to see in the monitor. But every one of the buttons have the name on them, so you can so every single button, you don't have to know what functions things are. They're just labeled. That's one thing I just love about a screen interface. Oh, another thing that I can't stand is in the settings for it, above where your service is, there is a thing called mute sounds. Because otherwise, every time you take the throttle up, it'll go tick, 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 and you're losing sanity every few minutes that happens. So I turned that off. There's also some alerts on how it works. Immediate idle for alerts. That if an alert pops up on your phone, it'll bring your locomotive to a stop. If you take a call, if you're using your phone, which I've got some dedicated devices, and I'd encourage, go to Walmart, buy a $30, $35 prepaid phone, and if you want to use a phone, and just don't use it or have a dedicated device. But if you are using your phone and somebody calls you, if you answer that call, your locomotive will bring itself to a stop.
Yep. All right, just had to shut that phone off because I had 3% left on it. Still without power over here, by the way.
That's dedication, brother.
Well, I'll tell you what, if anybody's got any questions in the chat over here, this is the time to ask them. Ron, you get it working yet?
I'm trying to load up the YouTube stream on my phone so I can see the questions as they come in. My work phone. I'm trying to load up the YouTube stream on my phone so I can see the questions.
And I'm sure you guys can hear that locomotive, but that's at a volume level of like 15% stock. The default volume is rather intense. That's one of the best things I think anybody can do is bring that master volume down. Scale sound, as the professor has clarified or discussed before. It should be appropriate sound. If you're in a big noisy room or at a club, I can understand turning the volume up a little bit. But in my small room, at 100% of the stock volume, it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah, they can get pretty loud, especially with some of these good speakers they got going now.
Absolutely. And I turned some of the volumes. The default master is brought down quite a bit, but I bring the whistle sound up a little bit. That you want that to be fairly distinctive. And then in my operational scheme, we'll have to use the whistle to coordinate between operators some, just like the prototype. So you want the whistle to be loud enough that you can hear it. So I adjust those two volumes. Otherwise, I don't change any of them, but I adjust the master of the whistle.
Yeah, I brought all of mine down to at least half of what the default was on it.
Well, it's based, it depends on the locomotive. I mean, if you've got a small speaker in a diesel locomotive, you probably don't want to go as low as mine, but these Broadways have a rather large speaker in the tender with all that room in there. They are loud. So,
yep.
It's great to have that headroom and that flexibility, but
well, I guess.
Well, I mean, especially in a room my size. You see the size of this room here. It's a 10 by 12 foot room. The default setting on the thing is so loud that I can't hear myself think, let alone figure out what's going on.
Yeah, my room's not dissimilar to yours. I mean, mine's 15 by 15, give or take, and even with layout divisions and even with some other noises going on, anything close to even half throttle or half volume is deafening. You want them to be. My instinct is if you are 5-6 feet away from the locomotive, you want to be hearing it a little bit, and if you're right up close with it, you absolutely want to hear it. If locomotive's on this side of the room and I'm over here, unless there's no other ambient noise, I'm going to hear it. But if you've got two trains running, you should hear yours very distinctly on this side and not over here. That required my volume to be quite low.
Yep. All right, Johnny, I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions coming through right about now.
Yeah, nope. And you said you done covered everything, right?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it all up.
Okay.
That gets you running. I mean, as you get more familiar with JMRI, you'll start playing with things a little bit more, and you'll start going deeper and deeper into the JMRI rabbit hole, which, let me tell you, that rabbit hole is about 15 miles long.
And there's a lot of us down there. So welcome to the family if you're interested. Yeah. We'll meet you at the bottom in 20 minutes. So
yeah.
Well, just want to say that if you do have questions, you can post them in the comments, or if you want to get an answer a lot faster, come on into the nightly chat. If you don't want to be on camera, just turn your camera off and you can at least ask the question. And there's usually Robert, Chris, and Andy in there at some point in time, and they'll be glad to help you out with it. So
absolutely.
All right.
And there's a lot more we can do, advanced features, if you want to meet off show and talk about those, or if there's an encouragement in the future for using the advanced features. Like with it, you can control an RGB light strip above the layout integrated to it without additional hardware. You can control turnouts or occupancy detectors or various other things directly off the plus system. Hits the plus part. There's a lot more of that. So maybe there'll be if we get more and more people using these, we'll collaborate, maybe put together a show around that. But definitely, if you're interested in using some of those features, or the network connectivity feature, or any of the other motor shields that have some other features, there's a lot of ways you can go here. We're generally hanging out in the chat and are excited to hear other people use it and be glad to help.
Randy, I'm telling you right now, buddy, 15-20 minutes worth of work, you'll be able to switch over from DC to DCC. It's really not a hard thing to do.
Nope. And my challenge is the few people I know that are using plus, inordinately happy with it. I can't rule out buying a commercial system at some point if I ever need it. But even if you have a good commercial system, building a plus system for $30-40 all in or something, and having it as a dedicated programmer, it has enough power to deal with sound locomotives or anything else. Even if you just use it as a dedicated programmer, it's a spectacular investment, a fun project, could do a lot with. Or if you have a small layout that you don't want to have to unhook and hook your DCC system up to hook to it, just put a dedicated WiThrottle on it. It can even run a wireless access point right on a Raspberry Pi. You can stick the whole mess right up under the layout on two little boards and plug the layout in, give it 30 seconds to boot up, and run trains. It can all be integrated into the module.
See, and that's the part of this whole thing that I can't fathom. And mind you, I almost went to a commercial DCC system, but after playing with this and figuring it out, I can't understand why anybody would.
It does enough.
And you can do everything. You can do everything and more, actually, with DCC++ than you can with any commercial system. You can actually run trains completely automated with DCC++.
Yep. Yeah, the guys actually built something we haven't talked about is the controller. So there's two pieces that the guys who wrote this thing have put together. The DCC base station, which is the code that goes on the Arduino to make the command station, and they wrote a piece of software that's called DCC controller. Now, I love JMRI and Panel Pro and the Warrant system that do automatic train running in JMRI. That's fine if you want to be, and that's the way I'm going to do it. A lot of people are going to do it that way, or using an automation software like Railroad & Co. or one of those to do automation. But they have wrote a piece of software, the same guys that wrote this, that's a little programmer with a little track that you can put your track diagram in, and you can choose turnouts and throw them right off this. It's worth looking at. If you're going all the way and you're going to use JMRI anyway, then that's a no-brainer. But if you're, if JMRI seems intimidating to you, there's a very simple controller in the DCC controller, DCC++ controller package. It's really simple. Be great for a small switching layout or a 4x8 table or something. It'd be entirely adequate for that.
Yep.
All right. Well, get over here and guess we'll just wrap this one on up. I want to say thanks, Robert and Andy, for doing the show tonight, finishing up the build, setting up the software for DCC++. And we shall see what these guys are going to do with it. Like I said before, if you have questions, post them up in the comments, because Chris and Robert will keep check on that. To get a quicker answer, you can come in on the nightly chats. If you really don't want to be on camera, turn the camera off. You have that capability at the bottom of the screen. And you can just talk and ask questions, and they'll be glad to help you through it. Alright, with that said, this is a recorded show. Both halves now will be up on the YouTube channel, and you can go to the specials list, and that's where you'll find these two. For the next few days, they'll be up on the front page, but as other posts come in, they keep moving down, and we do keep them in playlists, so all the shows are in playlists. They're on YouTube. So go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check schedules for the weekly shows. Tuesday and Wednesday is the 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. The Thursday show is at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern time. We've had a little scheduling change here. Let's see, next week we will not have Into the Locomotive Shop on the 21st. Joe has got his work schedule has been turned around on him, which he couldn't help, so we moved the show to the 28th. March the 28th will be Into the Locomotive Shop. Ralph took the month off, so Phil said he'd like to do a show on building wire trees, show people how he does it. So he will be doing that show on the 27th of March. So that'll be a week from next Tuesday and Wednesday. A week from next Tuesday and Wednesday will be those two shows. Both of those will be at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Alright, so hope everybody enjoys the rest of the weekend, and we shall see you next week for the only show that's going to be on air, and that's going to be the Johnny Mall Train Talk Show, 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Y'all have a good weekend. We'll see you later.
Thanks for joining us.